Hello and welcome to the Gaago analysis show. Today, myself and Marc are going to have a look back at some of the analysis pieces from last weekend's action. But just before we jump into that, Marc, is there anyone, in your opinion now, who are starting to close the gap on the Dubs as we head into the final round of the All-Ireland series?
Yeah, hi Aaron. Yeah, do you know, I suppose I had Donegal at number 2 spot. Obviously, they went down to Park here in the weekend, and I don't know, was it complacency or what, but disappointing performance from them. And it's going to be interesting to see how they react to that now in the final round, where it's all to play for in that group. Armagh really stepped up. Huge statement by them. That performance was in them. It was great to see them play that attacking style football, which we all know is there. So I think they're definitely in the mix now. And Kerry, obviously, Kerry, look, Meath are obviously very poor in my view. They haven't really progressed for Tailteann Cup winners. When you contrast that with, say, what Westmeath did when they were Tailteann Cup winners. So for me, I think Kerry are, they're going about their business efficiently. Good to see David Clifford getting 2 goals the last day. Again, he's only in second, third gear, but it was a comprehensive victory by Kerry. And I mean, they went up there, they did their job. Now the next round against Louth, reset again. We saw where Louth were at in terms of what they bring to the table defensively. Dublin really struggled, so that should be a good game. But the way I'm looking at it, obviously Dubs are in the top. I have Armagh, I have Kerry. I'll also have Galway there. I think their players are coming back just at the right time, and particularly Shane Walsh, he's playing really well. So all those teams in the mix for me, and don't rule out Tyrone either.
No, where I was in Dr. Hyde Park watching the Mayo Roscommon game, and just you mentioned Armagh there, one thing that stood out to me was how ruthless they were in punishing any turnovers that they got in the counter-attack against Derry. And in looking at the Mayo game, I was there the day before, I felt they got a huge amount right at times in terms of how they defended, how they forced the turnovers. But to me, their counter-attack, there's an awful lot of work to be done. Now, they have the players to do it because they have the running power, and particularly in Ryan O'Donoghue, they have a focal point in the inside line that they can feed through. But I just felt there's times where they're missing that link player on the half-forward line in particular. And if you can imagine back to the likes of how Alan Dillon, Kevin McLaughlin, Jason Doherty would have played, where they forced a turnover, but it gives them that quick outlet foot pass, which gets them on the front foot straight away. And then also I felt, and we'll look through this in some clips now, in terms of their inside lane, the furthest players to get up the field for them just got as far nearly as their attacking 21. But that means as soon as they go to make a run to receive a foot pass or a hand pass, they end up 35, 40 metres out from goals at the edge of the D. And as we get into the business end of the season, you need to be getting over 20 points a game. And for me, I'm not sure they have the marquee forwards to kick the 20 points, but the goals need to come. And this is with a running game. It gets you so far. I think they're still missing a trick in terms of just creating that foot pass. And you'll see all of these clips as they develop. The running game is fine, but even a team like Roscommon were well set up to track them, to chase them throughout at all times. And to me, that's why they need to be, now ultimately get a score from Matthew Ruran in that one there, but they need to be creating more goal opportunities for the inside line. Like, this is a brilliant turnover from Aidan O'Shea. Armagh last weekend now were head up and a foot pass. You're looking to try and get the ball to the opposite end of the field as quickly as possible. You just see, like, it gives Roscommon, even them 2 fist passes at this stage, it's given Roscommon defenders a time to turn and retreat. Now, Mayo, ultimately, you'll see, they get the ball up the field, they do get a shot away, but there's very little coming from it. You're not really asking individual questions. So this is my point now. This is the furthest players that they have forward. They're still just under 21. Think Dublin. Think the Kerry team, the great Kerry team that you played on. So this is a brilliant turnover. They're straight in front of goals and they end up getting blocked whenever it should never happen. So my point is, the Kerry team you played under the Dubs now, you got players right to the end line. So whenever they made their break, they're receiving the ball maybe 14, 20 yards out, and then the runners come off them. So this one here, that's a pass inside all day long, but they just take an extra fist pass side. Now look how far out they are whenever they receive the ball, instead of looking up and getting that initial pass to the inside lane. So there's two things there for me. It's the guy on the outside, he's not looking to pass, but also the run from the inside forward. I think it was maybe Ryan O'Donoghue in that instance. He runs out instead of running flat, running horizontal. He's not thinking there's a goal chance on here, and that's the bit that I think they really need to work on. And again, you can see here, look at the space inside in front of the Roscommon goal. There's not a Mayo player. Like, the ball is on the 21, and they have actually no players inside the 21. So again, if you're trying to think ruthlessly, if you're trying to analyze what can we get better at, if you're Mayo, this is definitely something. Again, just look inside. The ball's 40 meters out, but there's nobody thinking, let's get inside, let's stretch the game, let's hold back 3 or 4 Roscommon defenders to try and create a goal chance or an easy score. And then Ryan O'Donoghue ends up just popping in a ball into the corner, where that ball should have been 5-6 seconds earlier, should have been popped in straight in front of the goals. And then the runners they have coming off the shoulder. This is the part I was speaking about in terms of, this is where Alan Dill and Jason Doherty, they would have been on the 45, running flat, and they'd be receiving this ball now, and then they'd be playing it to the inside line. But already in the top of the screen, you can see Ryan O'Donoghue has made his run out, and he's now starting to double back to go in. But he's been marked. There's another sweeper beside him. You have 4 Roscommon defenders in front of him. Conor Loftus takes 2 bounces, and next thing, nothing comes off it. Armagh last week were getting a score on every single one of those attacks, and that's what made them look so fluid. And just basically, they were much more pleasing on the eye. It was sort of, it's the first time maybe in 2 years that we've seen them flowing as well as they did. But again, you're thinking of your inside forward line. You were there whenever under Rochford, or Mayo were going really well. It was Andy Moore inside. Every time he was making his run, he was only receiving the ball 20, 25 yards out, and Lee Higgins coming off a shoulder and sticking the ball into the back of the net. So even though football has evolved, I definitely think that this is one key area that they can definitely make improvements on if they're going to try and challenge the Dubs next weekend, and then anyone further the field after that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because it was something we were always conscious of as a team. Look, you're always going to have players that will have to track their man back, Aaron. But in certain situations, you still have to have shape up front. You still have to have... We were always conscious of the fact when we were playing that if you had your 3 in the full forward line or whatever it may be, that one of those players would step out to the D to make sure that you know, those players kicking in from, say, midfield, half back line, that there was always an option to kick to that half forward line. And in fact, I'll go back as far as even 2009. Ty Kennelly played in the final against Cork. Ty's job that day was just to bring Graham Canty all over that half forward line and not to come out further than the midfield area. His job was just to go over and back that half forward line. And like, he had the beating of Canty for the first 50 minutes. He was taken off then for fresh legs for Donncha Walsh, and it was only when Donncha Walsh came in that, you know, even though Donncha was excellent as well, Canty started to come into the game that bit more. But the point, getting back to Mayo, I just think that they're exerting an awful lot of energy there, bringing the ball up the field. Yeah. And then when they get up the field, you know, you said it yourself, Roscommon have the players back. And it goes back to, you're dead right, they're going to have a presence, shape in that half forward line if they're to pose any threat to Dublin.
Yeah, no, there were times, in fairness, Roscommon, depending on the kicker, if Roscommon scored from a free, they pressed hard. If Roscommon, if Mayo scored from a free, Roscommon then just retreated from open play. So yes, they got an awful lot of people back, and you have to read that situation. But my point is, if you're looking to close the gap, or you're looking to beat the Dubs or go better than where they were last year, the Dubs get straight back to the end line, and they get about 3 players ahead of the ball, because what they're doing is they're stretching the field and giving you that kicking option. But what they're also doing is they're holding back 3 defenders because they need a mark, and then they'll generally pull back a 4th defender who'll stay in front of them as a +1. So then it opens up spaces across the rest of the field to get that running game going. So to me, they just looked an awful lot in tune in one style, where to make that next step, they just need to find a better balance in terms of how they can get easier scores, or in particular try and create those 2-3 goal opportunities that they're going to need to win the bigger games over the next 6 or 8 weeks. But I suppose you were having a look at someone else in that there game, and in particular you were trying to keep a keen eye on Enda Smith. Obviously John Small had done a brilliant job in Croke Park the week before, but you have a few clips picked out and a wee bit of analysis on Enda.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's obviously an all-star. He's Roscommon's go-to player. An outstanding talent. We saw just how good he was last year in the league and also in the championship. And it was clever. It was a clever move by Desi Farrell putting John Small out to the middle of the field. I often find with players like that, players that have such an influence on a game. You're talking the likes of Brian Fenton, and Enda Smith falls into that category for Roscommon because he's their go-to man. Even I cast my mind back to our club days when we were playing. We took on St. Mary's, Carsavine, Brian Sheehan was playing midfield. We actually put our defender, Brian Begley, on him. And we'll actually talk later in the show about Brian as well. But I just feel if you can negate the main player for the opposition around that middle area, which John Small did to great effect, where the option's going to come from then from Roscommon. But the last day, and I know we were on the show with Gaago talking about Enda Smith. To his credit, it was a much improved performance. He was good in the first half. Was putting good balls in. But we can see him here as well. And this is his game. This is what he does well. He takes on the players from deep, goes at him. He's such a big, tall, strong man, and he can kick from distance as well. Excellent score from him. And he just out around the middle. He doesn't shirk his responsibilities. As I say, he goes at the opposition. But I think, wins another free there. Ran out his steam, in my view, Aaron, in the second half. And I know you have a take on this as well, but took some shots and just didn't have the same impact I felt in the second half. And when Roscommon don't have this fella on his game, where is the supply of ball going to come from into the inside line to Craig, to Murta, to Cox, like we saw in those guys did play well in the Dublin match. But for me, he is a really important, vital cog for this Roscommon team if they have to have any impact in the championship.
Oh, he is. Like you mentioned, the big thing about them was the inside forward line were absolutely outstanding against Dublin. They kicked 13 points between themselves. But last weekend, now you're right, Enda had a much better first half, and I suppose what we didn't show there as well, he got back for 2 unbelievable turnovers as well, which gave them front foot football. But I had sort of mentioned it briefly to Davy Burke before the game started last week in terms of he's that good and that influential that you have to be able to find a way to keep him in the game as much as possible. And so even though his main game is driving, taking that contact, freeing up a bit of space and getting a shot off, to be man-marked where you're maybe off the ball or you're maybe behind play, and let that happen for a whole game, for him to stay out of it, Roscommon are in trouble. So I would have, suppose, in my own opinion, that there's times maybe that you just need to let him drift to the half forward line and let drift to the middle of the D to get ahead of the ball so he can just influence it, because he's that important to them that psychologically it affects all those around him whenever you have your marquee player like him being curtailed or held quiet, because it just sort of drains the energy from all those around him also.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if you watch Dublin, I don't know if you noticed it in the last few games, it's definitely something that they're working on. And Brian Fenton is picking up the ball in the D area. He's given license to get forward as much as possible. He did it to great effect against Louth in the Leinster Championship, and we've seen it again in the last few weeks. So I think that's something that they're working. So I totally agree with you there. I think he should get into those advanced positions. Now, to his credit, he does, at times, but I think it's something that Roscommon should definitely work on, and in getting him further up the field. And I think you mentioned it as well. If there's periods where he's such a dynamic player, fatigue is going to set in. Maybe that 2 or 3 minute period where he's just in there, and all of a sudden it poses totally different questions to the opposition. How are they going to mark this big, tall, strong man in the inside line? But he's key to Roscommon this year. Going forward in the championship and staying in the championship.
Absolutely. Talking of stuff that has sort of stood out or caught the eye, something last weekend. It's maybe a bit too soon to say that this is a trend that's kicking in, but the goals that were got last weekend off sort of some forced and some unforced turnovers, it really stood out to me, and an awful lot, particularly coming from Derry this past few years, getting to 15 people ahead of the ball. And going looking for one-on-one situations. But this individual tackling from Tiernan Kelly was absolutely brilliant. Forced Conor McCluskey back, puts him under pressure. But it's Oisín Connaughty in the left of the screen that you see here. He's not just daydreaming, thinking, I'm going to mark Emmett Bradley. He senses blood now. And just those few steps he takes, as soon as the ball breaks, it's open ground and he's gone. Had he just been daydreaming and thinking, we're well set up, I'll leave Tiernan to do his own job, this goal would never have come, because it still would have left a 2-on-2 situation with more cover coming in on the right-hand side here from Donnacha Gilmore. But to me, it's just that glance. Well, number one, it's Tiernan Kelly putting the pressure on and forcing that turnover. And geez, you'd nearly think that this was a new tactic that was brought into the GAA, but Armagh literally just went man-to-man. They backed themselves to be forceful in the tackle, got the turnovers, but they had a plan B then, and that was to be ruthless, get men ahead of the ball. This one here again, you have Aaron McKay just looking up, and he can automatically see where the next pass is going now. Someone of the caliber of player, Brendan Rodgers, he'd be so disappointed with this. Like, it's just a basic hand pass that needs to go maybe one bounce in front of his teammate, but he puts it maybe 10 meters ahead of him. And for them to be so careless with the ball, it was a real standout feature. But to me, if you just go back one more clip, Derry are hemorrhaging goals at this stage and have been. Why Conor McCluskey felt he needed to go and get ahead of the ball and leave Turbot to cheat, or whatever you want to call it. I would call it being cute. And then ultimately getting punished. And this one again, you have Ryan McHugh, who never gives the ball away, never gets lost or flustered in contact, but gives away. That's the far 45. And next thing, he's chasing the full length of the field. It's a role reversal of what was happening against Derry. And then this one here again, just keep an eye on Shane Walsh, bottom of the picture. He looks at the shape of Kernan. He reads exactly what he's going to do here and intercepts perfectly. So same thing. It's good. It's granted everyone's coming back and you're standing in your zonal positions and you're sort of keeping an eye on somebody. But I think teams have gone to the next layer now, where it's read your opposition, read their body language. Where are they looking? And Micheál Bannigan, you can see him at the bottom of the screen here. He was man marking. He had his hand on his opponent, the bottom left-hand corner. But he has been quoted this week as he could read exactly what was going to happen. He knew where Dan Corcoran was going to go with the foot pass. He just took a bit of a gamble. He knew, I can leave my man. He's the opposite side of the field. He's not going to pose any danger in terms of an attacking threat here. And next thing, he just reads it, and a brilliant finish to lob a keeper. So it's definitely something that really stood out to me last weekend, was players scanning around what's happening, where the next pass is going to go. And not only doing that, having a product at the end of it that is ruthlessly making the opposition pay.
Yeah, I totally agree again. And like, we've seen it so much, particularly with Derry. They like, I mean, if you look at the way they were playing in the National League, what stands out for me, Aaron, is the way they're turning over the ball now. Okay, you can say they're minus McGinless, they're minus McAvoy, McGrogan, like these excellent footballers. But you're always going to transition the play from one side, one half, maybe the half back line, to the other side of the field. Teams are copying on. Teams are getting players taking that risk because they know they have the defenders back. The other side of it is you have two fellas pressing. It's like the Pep Guardiola mantra when he was with Barcelona, that 5-second rule. If you lost the ball, you were going to work so hard. Two fellas were going to press, work so hard to get the ball back, and the other players were going to get into their shape and make sure that they were well set up at the back. And that's what's happening in a lot of those in those Derry clips in particular. And then just go at pace, because from the championship we've seen the likes of the McCluskeys, and I know I'm going to get onto defenders in terms of getting scores. That's what's happening. Everyone wants to, I suppose, the game has changed in such a way that it's the defenders who are now getting up, getting the scores, and they're leaving themselves wide open at the back, particularly goalkeepers going, everything like that. So yeah, it's happening. And if you have a player like Shane Walsh then who has that pace that can go, and Matty Taylor and these lads who just have explosive pace, it's very hard to stop when you have everyone up the field.
Yeah, who am I to be giving out about attacking defenders and not staying back and doing your primary role? You were fond of an outside of the foot one in the day, but you did your defensive duties, no doubt about that. But you want to just, I suppose, highlight again how football has evolved in terms of a collective of defenders getting up the field and how they're able to ruthlessly put away any opportunity that they get their hands on.
Yeah, of course, I used to get up the field as much as I could. I kind of had I remember I was playing in the 2010 Munster final or Munster semi-final against Cork and Killarney. I was marking Paul Kerrigan. Actually, I thought I did really well, but I conceded 3 points on that day, and it went to a replay, and I just felt I had to get forward more to put him on the back foot. He would have had more pace than I would have had, but I felt if I could get up the field more, it would put him on the back foot, like I said. And I think that's what, and I did get up the field on that day. I actually got an equaliser to force extra time in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. But my point is, a lot of teams now, and let's just say Kerry, for example, and we'll show the clips in a few minutes, but you take the likes of Kerry, you take the likes of Tom O'Sullivan. There is no way when we were playing football that we would have got the license that Tom O'Sullivan is getting to get up the field and get scores. But he's really good at it. And when I started off with Kerry first, Tom was brought in as a forward. We see here the game in Navan. Look at that for a beautiful score from Tom. He just gets into those positions. And I think Jack has given him license to do so. Outside of the left boot, point by him. We see here my old clubman, Brian O'Begley. And, if there's any man, Aaron, that can break the line, break the tackle, it's Brian. He has that explosive pace. He's a real plus for Jack O'Connor back this year, because you cast your mind back to the 2022 All-Ireland semi-final against Dublin. He was a real leader, especially when Dublin were pressing the Kerry kick-out. Here again, I think we've Tony Brosnan going at the meat defence, and who's up there? Dylan Casey, I believe, in that occasion. So Tom is just a Rolls Royce of a footballer. And look at this. I mean, the chances of getting a score here, not really on. Look at that for an outrageous kick with the left leg. He has that. That's his go-to kick outside of the left boot. That's 2 kicks he's kicked with the outside of the left boot. He got man of the match. I thought Brian O'Begley was outstanding as well. Tom there again, outside of the left boot. Doesn't come off on that occasion. But teams are setting up now for the likes of Tom O'Sullivan. We always set up for the defenders or for the forwards. But when you're the opposition, you actually have to set up for the defenders. Excellent score here again from Brian. Brian was dogged with injuries last year, with calf injuries. I know Graham O'Sullivan is out at the moment. But again, look, we see him here coming at deep and then breaking that line, and lovely score from him as well. So we see Niall Devlin as well getting up the field. I mean, he got 2 goals. Lovely shimmy here. You see him coming in on the edge of the square here. Pop pass, lovely and he had a bit of work to do there to get past the goalkeeper. But it's the next one here. And Niall Morgan would have been frothing at the mouth had Niall Devlin not got this score. And it just goes to show, for me, Niall Morgan's the best goalkeeper in the country. And what he does, not like Devlin has a lot to do. Look at that for a dummy hop there. And like I said, Morgan would have been disappointed if that hadn't gone on. Matty Donnelly, he's rolling back the years as well. He continues the run here, gets forward. I mentioned Tom O'Sullivan, that teams have to set up for him. Same here, Matty, great score from him. And I think he's really relishing this new role where he's able to come from deep. He's obviously got technically he's fantastic, great footballing brain from him. They got 2-6, Tyrone, from the two lads that I mentioned, Devlin and Donnelly. So if you have players from the back that can play football, that can get up the field and get the scores, all of a sudden, you have to set up, not just for the forwards, but you have to set up for players like that. And it's a side of the game. Of course, when we were playing, Aaron, you were the same. You were the half back. You used to love getting up the field, getting the scores. But nowadays, it's. I think there's more license to do it because teams are set up at the back. It's like, come at us if you can. But if you have players that can break the line like that, like O'Begley, like Matty Donnelly, like Devlin, we've seen McCluskey doing it for Derry last year. It's a very hard thing to break down. You're looking to track those runners very hard when you have players with that athletic ability and technical ability as well.
Yeah, the likes of Aidan Falker for ourselves is quite similar because like an opposition, they think they've done well, they've maybe stemmed the initial attack, the balls pop back out again, and someone that ability who gets into those pockets either side of the D and be able to execute off the outside of the boot. It's a brilliant weapon to have. So yeah, to be fair to Tom, now I was down in Killarney with yourself, with Gaago for that Cork game. He had 3 points in play. I was back again for the Monaghan game, 3 points in play. The same last weekend. He's literally hitting more scores from play than inside forwards all across the country. So definitely he's someone who is in a rich vein of form and just seems like a real leader as well for that Kerry team and how he goes about his business.
He's a class act. I remember my last year, 2016. I was dropped after the National League final, and I remember trying my damn hardest to try and get back in onto the team. I was playing centre back this night in training, and Tom was put in centre forward. I think he got 4 from play off me. There was no chance I was getting back in after that, I can tell you. But he's that type of a player. He can play in any position. Brian is the same, and it's if you have players like that can just get up the field and just be as comfortable as the forwards are, you're adding more. Both your attack, you're just you're not just this one trick pony. So from Jack's point of view, having Brian, having Tom, having players like that, we know Gavin White can do it. It's I think they're hitting the right timing. They're timing it right coming into the last game against Louth. So we said it at the start of the show. Kerry are definitely improving in my view. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Jack O'Connor will be happy with that, but also so will the Kerry forwards because it starts to take the attention off them and free up a wee bit of space. But we have no Sam Maguire football to chat about this weekend or view, but we do have live Tailteann Cup games on Gaago. So if you check out the website, you'll see more details there. And we'll see you all for our coverage then. But Marc, thank you very much. Great to chat, great to catch up as always, and we'll see you soon.